So first thing I wanted to talk about that I forgot, I set everything for the discussion except that I put it was only active on a past date. So it was only open until, and that date had passed. So I noticed that no one did the discussion board and that was my fault. I have fixed it. So you can do the discussion board this week for attendance for next week. And then I took attendance live today as everyone was popping on here. On critique nights, attendance is just counted live. If you do ever miss, I'll give you opportunities through the semester to make up points, and that's usually towards attendance. But let me screen share here. If you go to the module for last week, you'll see the discussion board, and I'm in student view now, checking it, and it is active until next week. So please do that this week. In fact, I can leave student view. I will go to the module and I'll add that. I'll add that to this week too. So it's in there. Again, that's for your participation points last week. And this week, still have some people popping in. I wanted to do a group critique of our first project of your posters. Does anyone who's here not have it available to pull up on their screen or to share it?
I was just gonna say mine is on my PC, so I would have to like just transfer it to my laptop.
Okay, I can. Was that Brianna?
Yes, that was me.
Okay, sorry, I was watching the microphone over here. Because I always keep it on tiled view, so sometimes I can't tell which one of you is speaking. I can also screen share my screen if someone doesn't have access to it and you've already submitted it. I downloaded the projects earlier, but if you uploaded it after 5, I probably don't have it downloaded yet. Let's see. Oh, nice. I have yours. Okay. So I can also share my screen if that is easier for someone. I like when you share your screens though, because then I can watch the chat and everything a lot easier. Okay, so let's jump in. We do have some people missing, but I'll just keep an eye on letting people in there. How'd you feel about the assignment? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I had fun. I felt like just messing around with it, I felt like I got a little bit more comfortable with like, using Illustrator and stuff.
Ariane, how did you feel about Illustrator this week? Because I know last week you felt like it was a lot.
It was a little better.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
I would watch more tutorials again and stuff too. Like
I still had to have my son help me, but it was better than last week.
Good. Okay, so do you like getting the little breakout room? Do you want to share amongst each other for a few minutes and then we'll come in and we'll share as a group? Does that sound fun? So in the breakout room though, you'll have to pull up your own file. But I'll give you some time in the breakout room. We'll just do like a quick 10 minutes. And then we'll come back together, talk about everybody's. And then this week is actually a pretty quick, simple week. The assignment's really simple. And like I said, if you download that zip file, this is definitely one that you can follow along and do with me. I give you all of the components. The only thing you have to provide is a photo of yourself, but you could drop in any photo for right now and always add a new photo later. But this week it's all about knowing which program is for what. And so it's really just, again, it's not really design theory like last week. It's more just like, this is a process. This is the technical aspect of it. And we're learning a little bit more about the software. So I'll put you in some breakout rooms and you can show off your projects. Hold on just a second. Okay, hold on. Okay. I'm gonna do 4 again. Let's see. Yeah, that gives you more time. Okay. Do about 10 minutes. Welcome back. Got one room still hanging out there. They must be having a good discussion. Here they come. All right. So I hope that eased, if anyone was feeling nervous about this, I hope that eased some of your concerns. Critiques are a very safe space, but no matter what, it's scary to show our work to other people. I mean, I've been doing this for 16 years and I still get nervous having to show what I did to a new client and wondering if they're gonna like it, or just like putting, like, design is a little bit different because it's solution driven and you're solving problems, but especially when it comes to art stuff, it's like so personal, and then you have to show people and you have to get that feedback. So I know this can be really nervous, but it's really useful to talk about the projects as a group and see what everybody did. So I can do this a couple ways. I can just go down the list. Or sometimes I've had classes in the past where they just like to say, oh, I'll go next, and they kind of put themselves in an order. So if you're the type that's like, yes, I want to get this over with, I'll go first. You can either put it in the chat or just volunteer. And if we run out of those volunteers, I'll just start calling people on the list. And if for some reason your project is not complete at this time, I am absolutely okay with you sharing what you do have. But I think that most of you here have yours turned in. So does anyone want to go first? Marianne, you want to go first? Okay, go for it.
All right, don't make fun of me.
And so to help you, to guide you into what you say, so you don't feel like, just talk about what principle and element you chose and why you made the design decisions that you did.
Okay, so mine was on pattern and color. So I wanted to have, I like hot pink, and I like a lot of vibrant colors. So that's why I picked the colors I picked. And for the pattern, I like hearts and flowers. I like bees, but it was going to be too hard to try to do. So I went with the heart and flowers, and that was challenging enough for me. So those were my two. And then here is the other one. This one.
That's your grid. And you don't have to share the grid. We're really just going to talk about the posters, but I like seeing your grid. Did you print it out? You printed it out and did it by hand?
Yeah.
That's a smart way to do it.
Yeah. So I was trying to replicate color pattern, this one right here.
Uh-huh.
And then my son was making fun of me because he said there's no way I was going to be able to draw those flowers.
Will you pull your poster back up for a second? You totally did it. Did
That's
you
the closest I could get to.
did you use circles to make those shapes?
Uh-huh.
That's really smart. So that's why I encourage you just looking at the shapes and trying to break things down into simple shapes, because you can almost start with a circle or a square or a rectangle to make just about anything, and it's less to draw, and then you can combine those. So how did you make your heart?
The heart was the click, click, click one. I don't know how
Very clean.
I don't know how to explain. He helped me clean some of this up right here. And
I
then,
will have to show all of you or make a tutorial. There's like a 3-step way to make a heart using like 2 circles and a couple of clicks. But that looks very neat and clean. It's a great heart. Does anyone have a comment or an opinion they'd like to share about this piece?
Just great job on the heart. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like especially like being able to do it like using the tool. Like I had to use shapes for all of mine. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with your technical jump from last week, because
yeah.
you stayed after, and I know it was such a struggle for you. I would say now that I know you can do this, I'm going to give you some going to give you some comment, just design theory comments. So if you look at your square in the grid, you really did replicate what you saw there, but now you're coming to a bigger canvas. So you have to think of it as a whole. And so you used color and pattern. And I think that the 2 things are obvious. Like I can look at this and see that. But when you pick pattern, and there's a couple other people that chose pattern, and I'll probably have the same critique each time. When you pick pattern, you have to really emphasize that pattern. So scale on a big page, you probably need to bring these shapes down and do something that's more repetitive. So you're repeating the hearts and you're repeating the flowers, but the hearts and flowers need to repeat themselves. Does that make sense?
So like almost like a checkerboard?
Or something like that, but like this line of hearts should be there at least another time to kind of drive home that that idea of pattern.
So like this should be another row, like right here.
Yeah, so it might be scale, or it could even be getting cut off as it goes off the edge. But I'm just really proud of what you were able to create and draw versus last week. I know you said you were having a hard time, so I'm really glad that you got more comfortable. So that would be my overall design critique, is you chose pattern and you really need to emphasize that even more so.
Okay.
And I think what it is the way that you have this I'm having trouble here. My watch was trying to answer me. This lone flower down here kind of breaks the pattern because you have the type on there. So you need to repeat I think the hearts just one more time, either coming off the edge of the top or scaling it down, and then it'll really emphasize the idea of pattern.
Okay.
But yeah, you did a great job.
Okay.
Do we have a second volunteer? Did someone raise their hand? Melissa, was that you?
Yeah, let me share screen.
Okay.
Okay, so this is mine. I used colors and lines. The lines actually look like squares, but I just try to make them thicker so you guys can see the color a little bit better.
Anything else you want to tell us about your process or your design decisions?
Well, the process, I wanted to do this, like the lines like that. Before I did this, I was just putting the lines kind of like next to each other, but I didn't like it how it looked. So then I just started messing with them and putting them around the poster, and I liked it like that. So I kept it kind of like when we threw the paper on the last week like that. That's what I did. I just put them randomly, and I liked how it looks, so I kept it like that.
I really like the color palette that you came up with because it's off prime. I was saying that last week, I think that just going off primary or off like a normal swatch, like, you know, like a crayon box essentially is what the swatch palette will be. And just going off of that and using different colors that may be a little bit more unexpected together makes it feel elevated. And I think this color palette does. It almost has like a retro feel because of the muted background. And then anytime you have like a really like bright, vivid color, putting like you have this like lavender and turquoise coming in at the top that really draws your eye there. And then that like darker, on my screen, it's not true green. It's maybe like a little bit more army green, but it's not quite olive at the same time. But that green bar really lets those bright colors come through. And then the same thing with your muted, like soft bar in the back. It just seems like a lot of really good natural decisions. And like you said, like some of it was unintentional, but you knew where to stop and where to go with it. I like this overall.
Yeah, because I was not, the gray line was not supposed to be there, but I accidentally got into the gray color. I was like, oh, it looks nice. I'm gonna keep it.
So it's a good job of dividing up the page using the whole area and just like leaving some negative space for air, but then filling up certain spaces too. So good balance is going on here as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice job. Anyone else have a comment? You can also just use the chat too, but if you want to say anything.
I like the colors that you use too. Like they're just so, they like go, but they're so different at the same time and they pop. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I really like that color palette.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have another volunteer?
I can go.
Okay.
Yeah, I logged in from my phone, so I'm just gonna share my screen on the canvas, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Okay. Share screen. Perfect. So I felt like I spent a lot of too much time on the whole grid. And so when I wanted to do it, I just picked one that I could just kind of easily do. And then when I started doing the poster, I had spent so much time on the gradient. It doesn't look like it, but yeah, I had a hard time. And then so by the end of it, I just kind of I used one of the designs you already had on there, and I did the radial thing, and just to kind of initially I had it really big on my grid, but I was having a hard time expanding it by the vector. I figured it out later on that night, but I just wanted to upload it, and I had balance and size, and initially the balance I was getting from like the radial, I guess because it's like balanced, and then the size was originally supposed to be really big, and then I just had a hard time doing that to where it wasn't becoming overly pixelated. But yeah, that's it.
I looked at this one before class and I was like, okay, I can't wait to hear him talk about this, because either he's a genius or this was a total accident.
Oh, okay, nice.
So, so it was intentional. I mean, you had balance and size, and since you're on your phone, let me pull it up and we'll screen share and talk about it a little more. But
okay,
I actually really like this, and to me it's funny because I'm like, oh, it's 100% it works.
Okay.
But it's just okay. So if you all couldn't see it as clearly, if we zoom in here, there is a I guess to this scale it'd be like an icon or a pattern developing here, and it does have radial balance on this this image that he's created, and then balance and size are the two things. But if you zoom out, I have to zoom out this way, and you look at it as a whole piece, I mean, having this gradient be dark and then the contrasting color switch to this part of it, there is an absolute visual balance here because it's all dark until it gets to here. And then this is where the decision was to place the icon and the typography. So because this is right here, it's all balanced. This is exactly where your eye goes. We want to read, we want to see something visual, so our eye will immediately go there. And then this is so small, but because of the way our brains work visually, it is still balanced by all of this dark space up here. Even though this is so small, because of the way we look for familiarity, we look for words and our eyes work. So this is actually a really great solution and it totally works. And yeah, great job. But it was funny when I saw it before class. I'm like, I wonder if this is on purpose or if this was on accident.
Oh yeah, I struggled like expanding it. Initially, the graphic was going to be at the top in the middle, and I just kept struggling with it. And then eventually, I figured it out. But I just wanted something in there.
But yeah, you made those choices. You knew where to leave it, and yeah. So some of this you might be absorbing, and just like Melissa's previous piece, even when things are random, you're making those decisions of where to stop and where to make changes. So keep that in mind. And the more you grow, the more you'll understand why you're doing those things. But initially it might just be like, I just know this is what I want it to look like, and the why will come with more experience. So yeah, I really like that one too. I thought it was funny when I saw it, but it's a great solution. Oops, got a waiting room. Okay. We have Corey joining us. All right. So do you have another volunteer?
Yeah, I'm down to go next.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So this is mine. So I know we weren't really doing both, but I kind of liked a few of these, but I selected pattern and color. I just chose to change the colors a little bit. Yeah, I thought it looked kind of had like a vintage or retro feel to it. So that's kind of why I selected those shapes and colors, just because it resonated with me as far as that kind of like 60s, 70s, like stationary type of stuff goes. But I know it looks pretty elementary.
No, I like the color palette. Anytime these posters in this assignment have a color palette to it, or like some thought in the color palette, they look really interesting. My critique would be the same. Like if you choose pattern, really push the pattern. So again, like I see the repetition in the pattern, but like I want it to be a couple more times. I really want that, like because really you have this like the two colors switching 2 times, you know what I mean? So maybe even a couple more, and then that would really drive it home and make it stronger. But even the extra little decisions you make just make it feel complete and are a nice touch to it, like the little icon you have between your words, and then the border you put on there, and then just nice choices of color. So yeah, overall it has a really nice cohesive feeling.
Sweet. I will take wait, am I on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I keep forgetting. I keep turning my sound off because I'm watching my dad's puppy and she's throwing a fit out of sadness. But Yeah, I will definitely take that into consideration. And because you said that we can resubmit assignments.
Yes, you definitely can resubmit. If you get a critique and you're like, oh, you know what, I am gonna just make that change and resubmit. And then that is almost always my critique when someone chooses pattern, is that if you're gonna pick pattern, really emphasize that it's a pattern and give it lots of time, lots of repetition to show that it's, you know, that that's in there. So,
Okay, cool.
I mean, as humans, most of the time after like 2 or 3 times, we pick up on patterns immediately, but visually, like you just want to drive it home a little stronger.
Okay, cool.
Good job. All right. Do you want me to pick someone?
I can go if no one wants to go. I don't mind.
Okay, go for it.
So from I think someone else said I spent probably way too much time on my grid. I really did. That took me hours. It was just like I was so into it too, just trying to make it like I wanted to like it. I didn't want to just do it and I'm like, it looks okay, like I wanted to like it. And I do. So but the one that I chose, I wanted to do something a little more intricate, but it wasn't coming out the way I wanted it to, and I was really hard on myself about it. So then I was just thought, you know, I'm gonna keep it simple, something clean. So this was what I got. Share screen. Share. Yeah, I just picked like simple colors, something that wasn't. I didn't want too much on my poster. I thought about pattern, but I didn't think it looked right when I tried it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with color contrast. It's simple, it's nice, it's clean. So that was my final product.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same thing I was basically saying about Lysander's poster too, is that, so did you add the circles and the, like, what, when you put the circles and the squares on there, what was your thought process?
Like, how did I do it? Or like, why did I do it?
Why did you do like the squares and think, oh, it needs another thing? Or
yeah, I had just the squares at first, and then without the color contrast part on the bottom. I was like, but I didn't like it. I said, there's too much open space.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to make the square so big that it just looked ridiculous. So then I just made the square smaller. And then I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I'll just use the same colors with a different shape.
Mm-hmm. Well, so obviously you're using color here. And there's 2 colors that are different that are creating that contrast. And then the background is a contrasting color. But you also have contrasting shapes, which adds another element to the contrast, which I think you very easily could have just repeated 2 squares. But I like that you chose to add the circles because it adds another element of meaning to it. And so these are the things where I'm like, oh, is that intentional? Like, what did you think? Like, oh, I needed it to be different. Or is it just one of those happy accidents where it's like, oh, you chose contrasting shapes in addition to the contrasting colors. So you could even like, some of these you'll find too could work either way. So if you wanted to replace color with shape, that also works. But then it does also work for color and contrast. But I like that because you chose contrast, you didn't just repeat the same shape in there. So it adds that other extra layer of meaning.
Thank you.
And then I love that you worked within your skill set and you didn't try to get overwhelmed. I looked at your grid. Your grid is very nice.
I was going to say my grid, like I wanted, there was so many options. There was so many options for my grid. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I was like, which one can I choose? And I did try a couple different squares, but like someone else said, to get a small square and to make it bigger, it almost was overwhelming because I couldn't get the shapes to be exactly like they were in the little square. And I was like, you know what? I'm overstressing myself. This should be simple. This should be clear. So then I just kind of like, I don't want to say dumbed it down because that's not the right word, but I just kind of simplified it. Yeah.
Some of the best designs I've seen are very simple and they make me so mad because I'm like, I didn't think of that. And when we get into logo design, there's a lot of that where I'm like, oh, this is genius. And it's so simple. And so sometimes creating something with less is actually harder than when you have more. But yeah, I think you did a nice job. I think your grid is excellent. I have never thought about this until this semester, but if these posters were actually formatted in squares, because we used to print these, so 11 by 17 is an easy standard print size, would you have felt like it was easier to carry your design over if you were also designing your poster in the same format, like if it was a square instead of a rectangle? Just curious.
I kind of had fun blowing mine up because it didn't stay the same as the grid. I think if I would have done the same thing on the grid, I think I would have just tried to copy it
Just
and
kind of
tried to
copied
make
it
it.
too much.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that's good. That's good feedback. All right. Okay. Well, good job. I like that one a lot. Is there a volunteer for the next one?
I'll go if no one else is.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I got you. All right. So I'll make this one big. Oh my goodness. There we go. So this is my poster that I ended up pulling out. And I ended up continuing the patterns off the screen a little bit. And I like that kind of coloring outside the lines. And then this dot here, the one that looks like an eyeball, was actually supposed to be just a regular dot. But for some reason, when it copied in, and I didn't even find it out until like the last step when I unclicked and all the grid went away. And then there was this emptiness inside all of the dots. And I kind of liked it. So it stuck with it. But the was pattern and size. So is this one down here, the bottom right, that I tried to copy down into the poster. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
You really took that grid and turned it into something much more interesting. Because pattern, what you have in that grid absolutely works for pattern and size, but I think visually, it's, you know, this isn't just like polka dots or like circles. It really kind of has like a carpet aesthetic.
Oh yeah.
Or like, you know, it's kind of, for some reason it's not the same color or even the same shape, but it has like that overlook from the Shining carpet vibe for me.
Yeah.
I think that, so this is what I'm talking about when I say when you pick pattern, you really have to push that repetition. And part of what's working so well for Corey's here is that he did go off the page. So he continued the pattern and let it go off the edge of the artboard. And that alludes to the fact that this goes on infinitely. So I think that's what, that this will help me explain more what I'm talking about when I say you have to do more repetition and really push it. When you choose pattern, you do want that idea that it's going to infinitely continue into space, even though you're only looking at it in this one space. So yeah, I think that the different shapes of your circles was a cool accident and it looks really interesting. And yeah, I like it. Any comments from class? You're welcome.
I just have to say it. This gives me very much like the Target fitting room, like accent wall.
Yes.
Yeah, it could also be Target.
Like a very subtle brand positioning inside the store.
I think I see eyeballs and it gives me a little like creepy factor, but in a cool way. I don't mean that in a negative way.
We're allowed to do creepy designs, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
I like creepy things. So yeah, whatever your aesthetic is in this class, please roll with it. I've had students that have an aesthetic right out the gate and they do every assignment that way. And that is perfectly fine if that's how you feel about something and you can roll with it all throughout the semester. Or you might be figuring that out and learning it as we go along, which is fine too. All right, so let's keep going. We've got, let me look over here. Ashley went, Daniela?
I can go.
Okay.
Okay, so for when I turned it in and I saved it as a PDF, it like saved within the lines, but for like viewing purposes, I'm not sure how to get rid of like the extra parts right now.
you could go over to the toolbar and see where those two, I'm showing you with my mouse, but you can't see. Sorry. Yeah, keep going down and then see right there, hover over that. What is that? Go up to, no, hit those 3 dots for me. Let me look at mine. There's like a preview mode, but we can all visualize it.
Okay.
I'll show you exactly where it is later.
Okay, so for mine, I chose movement and size. And how I got this design, I actually copied it over from the grid and then I just enlarged it. And I think my favorite, or the most helpful thing that I learned while doing this project was the alignment tool. I discovered that. So I centered it and it really came together because some of these were kind of off. So aligning them really just came together.
Yeah, I think that I like the color. I like having that pink background, pink and black contrast. It makes it just look really cool. The align tool is very, very useful if any of you haven't taken the opportunity to explore that yet. A lot of cool decisions going on in here. The choice to make it scale it up. And then it does have movement in the sense that those lines do look like they're moving in space. And then that font choice that you wrote these out in have a similar vibe. So that's a really fun font choice that gives it that open negative space contrasting in the letters. And then I like that you carried that down and used a similar shape in between those words. So this is a good example just for you all as a class to realize, like, okay, she carried this over from the grid and you're like, oh, that seems easy. Easy. Why didn't I do that? It's these really smart solutions. So it's solution driven. So keep remembering that, like, you're solving a problem. How do you get from what you're trying to solve here? And then just all of those little decisions in between, like, oh, I need to align this. Oh, I think this needs to be scaled up. Okay, I have to put type on here. What font do I use? What will add a little something extra to this? And it's like a million different decisions going on in your head that you may not even realize as you get to your final piece. So this is another really cool one. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm going to Star is not here, is that right? I don't think she's here. I'm looking at the downloads to call on you. Let's do Brianna, the other Brianna.
The other one?
Yeah, Morris. Yeah.
Oh, okay. If you can pull it up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, give me just a second. Okay.
Okay. Oh, so for mine, it was a bit last minute. I'm going to be honest. So and I was also struggling with a couple of things, but I wanted to turn into something, versus nothing. So, but yeah, this is what I ended up coming up with.
So stylistically, with one change, I like this. And it's super simple, but sometimes things are just like, oh yeah, aesthetically, this is really nice. I can't quite tell. I think that
I like
also,
that you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I just like that there's the even spacing of the white bars in the middle. You could. It's like you're using the white of the background as also a shape almost, even though shapes aren't the thing, but you have the shape of the white line in between all your colors, and it adds to the contrast a lot. That's what
Yeah.
my eye originally went to, was all the blank
negative
space.
Yeah, is making, and so the way, so you also have what's going on here is that you have like the spacing of this fitting really well. It's not like it's completely centered. If this type was just moved so it's centered under where this one is falling right here,
Yeah.
I think that it would be really balanced and look really nice. And I think that this black line might be a little taller, or this one's just a little shorter, but it could also be, I'd have to get a guide and drag it down because the colors kind of vibrate a little, like it kind of tricks your eye. So I can't quite tell. But see, then there's also the part of me that's like, but this is in grayscale. So is it color? Like aesthetically, I just like it.
I noticed that too. No, because I was like color, and then like I saw like everyone else was doing color, and I was like, oh, I think I might have missed the mark on the color part.
But so I mean, black is like this, it's a color choice, but typically, I mean, so I would call this grayscale, but I just aesthetically like it as a whole. So I would probably just move the type so it's centered, make sure those are lined up at the top, and then I would just change color to line.
Okay,
And
yeah.
boom, you got yourself like a great poster.
Cool.
Because you made a lot of natural design decisions that just give it a really nice balance and harmony, and I just think it looks cool.
Okay, so, thank you.
You're welcome. But that's part of me where I'm like, well, okay, so color can work here for this, but for the assignment, like, does it work? It's sometimes there's just better. And then I've gotten sometimes students do these where it's like, oh, you did this and this, but this is actually this and this, and it still totally works. You just need to switch your words and then you've got it. So as long as you understand why it's the principle and it's the element that it is, then that's the point of the assignment. Okay, so I think that Jacob, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay.
Okay, so first I started, it wasn't originally going to be color and balance. My first one was actually space and rhythm, because if I go back to the grid, for mine, it was this little one on the bottom, and I liked the way the negative space sat in the grayscale. So it still had this way that it felt like free, like it was loose, even though it still had the structure, and then it had that rhythm and movement to it. So I started with doing something like that. And then I came over in here and I was working with it, and then I was sitting there and I was like, I don't like the way that it's just black and white. I just felt like I was like, no, I want to make it like a color. So then I did the colors, and I was going through all of those things. I ended up switching it and then doing like the inside of those square shapes to also be a gradient, but then make them like work in reverse towards each other. And then I was like, this weird thing happens in the middle, unless I move the gradients, that it would kind of like not bleed, but all the colors would merge together. So I was like, how do I break that up, but not radically change the way that it looks? So at first I was going to do color on one line and then go with one of the breaks and then do the balance. And then I was trying to get the eyedropper, because I was going to make it just like that one or two like tones apart so you can barely read it. But then I was like, also that's not fun because then it's illegible. So then I was like, we'll just pick a complementary color and roll with it. And then it did this thing that drove me crazy the whole time. So if you look at the top right corner, it's like point whatever, like a pica. It's just that little bit off of the edge, and I could not figure out how to get it to line up, because I would start over, and I did it from scratch like 3 times, and I was using shifts, so that way it would only rotate at like the 90s, but it still has that ever so slight little like edge off of the page.
I wouldn't have noticed it unless you pointed out. Thanks.
It just drives me crazy. It's just the little details for me drive me crazy. So I was looking at it, and I've gotten it better because it stuck out a little bit farther on the one I submitted, but I was like, let me nudge it a little bit before I put it on the screen.
Are you talking about that black part of the gradient that's stuck?
Well, yeah, that little gray one on the bottom, and then there's that little tiny one like on the very top right, and it stops like halfway. So by the time you get to the letters, it's like merged and came back in. So that's why I was like, why is it like halfway? It boggles my mind. And that was after I did the grid first and then did this in the same day. So at that point, I was like, we're done. Like, it's close enough.
Can you zoom in for me?
Yeah. So like this isn't like this ever so slight.
And then
Like,
you
hang
click
up.
on it with the selection arrow.
It's not, it won't do anything. I keep having to take the top layer off. So if I move this, and then it'll like let me grab this other one. But it's because it's a stroke and not the actual like shape itself. But like I was sitting here and I kept trying to do it, and then it would be in, but then it would be too far down at the bottom. So I was like, what? Why is it doing that? Because I copied and pasted. It actually, I started with, if you go back to the other one, it was this dotted lines. So I just picked that and copied and pasted it, moved it over, and then started with that. So I don't know if it was like,
Open your gradient palette for me. Go up to window.
let me, how do I, can I move the, there we go.
And don't save or do mess anything up. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Go down to gradient. Okay, so see there where that black circle is still hanging out? Click on it and just drag it down.
That's crazy. Oops.
And then if you click on your other bars and do the same thing, there's probably a little,
Those other ones?
yeah, click on that and drag it down, throw it away.
Wow.
There you go.
Maybe not. Okay, we'll go back to that. We'll come back to that. But no.
That'll give it that, it'll not disrupt that and really give it the balance that you were seeking.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they're driving you crazy. And then someone said they didn't, was it Corey that said he didn't notice it? I noticed it immediately.
It's just this one right here is the one that like was just really irking me. But
so if it makes you feel any better, the gradient tool and the gradient palette can be really cool. And if you really get into drawing with Illustrator, you can do some really cool things with it to add dimension and like some really neat aesthetics to your illustrations. But even for me, sometimes it'll go wonky and I'm like, I'm like, I have to either start over or pull off like, because even this gradient piece in the toolbar, that's what lets you like switch angles and drag things around. And sometimes for some reason that tool just gets out of my control too. And I'm like, it drives me nuts. But back to the work overall. Yeah, now I think it looks real. You don't have that visual disruption. It looks really balanced. This is another example when someone chooses color, like, but there's really just, again, it's monochromatic, but that is this color scheme.
yeah.
So, and it was in the PowerPoint, so it does work. And it does have a balance and like a visual balance, and the shapes look really great. And I think it just has a nice overall look to it. I might want to see, and this is me getting nitpicky now that you've learned to harness the gradient tool. So the way you have that type fitting in there, exactly the same size as that negative space, especially since it's right in the middle, might want it to be smaller.
Okay.
So it's floating in that space and not disrupting the flow. But I'm not quite sure about that decision. But I feel like it's like really balanced and harmonious, and then that's just creating tension points.
Right. Like, do you think they're saying so it should be like a shorter and then in, so about maybe like 3/4 of the way and then a little farther down?
Yeah, if you just scaled the whole type face in, like the whole size of the type, so that it's not hitting those edges. But then if you still wanted the balance of it going all the way to the edge, you could just give more space between the letters. But if there was just like a little negative space around all of the words, I feel like it wouldn't have as much visual tension as it's going right into the middle. But I could also be wrong. This is one of those where I'm like,
I mean, I just did it because I actually did a yearbook back at it was my senior year. We did it, and that's what the theme was on the front. And then it had this thing. So the letters were actually like some paint reveal thing. Anyways, so it was just something my brain went back to like off instinct, off of some other project. But like, do you think it should be more like something sort of more like,
I think so. I think maybe even a little bit smaller. Like, don't give that as much emphasis as
uh-huh.
the cool design you created. And I don't know, maybe the class can weigh in. Do you agree with me or disagree now that you've actually
Vote
done
in
it
the
in real
bottom.
Yeah, leave your comment. Just because I give a critique too, if you think it's a bad idea and you like your design the way it is, you do not have to change it just because I gave you that critique.
Okay.
I'm just giving you critiques based off my years of experience.
Right.
But sometimes you like what you like and you can defend those decisions. Zoom out for us now.
I just wish I could find, I wish there was like more like creative fonts in there because, oh, I went too far. Oh, I lost it.
I know I throw you guys in and you have to use fonts immediately, but there'll be a whole week about fonts and you'll get to learn all the secrets of fonts. Just double click on that magnifying glass. Oh, change it to the hand and double click it. Now double.
There we go. Okay. But no, I wanted something that honestly was like a sans serif, and I want it to be pretty. I was looking for something that was a little bit thicker, but I was just like went through all of them and I was like, I don't want a cursive. I wanted something that also mimicked that like boxy structure, but I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for.
I like the typeface. I like it like this. I feel like having it bumped up against those shapes just creates a visual tension.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't know. Do we agree, disagree? It did look really cohesive, but I feel like this is my personal preference.
So I felt like,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I felt like going with the words that were all the way stretched out. It looked like it was a bar, and I didn't realize that it looked so disruptive, but now that it's smaller, it makes the whole poster kind of look bulbous, where it's kind of bulging out of the middle and then skinning to the top of the bottom. I don't know if I'm just seeing that, but it looks more balanced now because of the negative space in that one bar for the text.
Okay,
I like
Jacob, undo all the way back. Just hit Command or Control Z all the way, like a couple times.
Or like go back to the.
Yeah.
Maybe. How far back
know.
was it? It was a couple iterations, but.
Okay, well, we don't have to make the design in front of us, but that was a good, I even like that. Okay, so really cool. I like what you did. I think we only have a couple more people with something to share. Miguel?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, go for it.
Let's see. All right, can you guys see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, I chose proportion and line. I definitely wanted to use the same line like repetitively, but I didn't want it to be so boring. So I just kind of used some angles and and then for proportion, I wanted to add this bigger line right here and this other big line just to give it a little flow. And then I also added this space right here. So it kind of plays on the space aspect using a negative.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what I came up with. I didn't really completely like it, but I kind of just ran out of time.
I like it. I think there's a lot of cool decisions going on. I don't know if I've ever had this combination, to be honest. So I think it's interesting. It's a new one that I haven't seen before, and using the squiggly lines really helps emphasize the different proportions. And I like that you chose to use the negative space in there. Have any of you taken art and learned about like rule of thirds? It's a design principle too, but a lot of you are naturally doing like the rule of thirds in your design or like photography, where I'll have to look it up to explain it better. But if you divide like your artboard into threes, I could probably explain this on the computer too, where things fall, like if they fall in like the third pieces of it, it just feels right to your eye. And I'll give you a better lesson on that down the road. But a lot of people can intuitively do things just based on what feels right to your eye. And the placement of a lot of these is creating like that, again, that visual balance, and then good use of negative space too.
Yeah, I kind of just like you said, just did wherever like put them wherever it felt good, and just like didn't like bother me really,
Mm-hmm.
because I was like playing around with it for a while, and a lot of the lines are bothering me, the placement. So yeah, I kind of did that without realizing it.
Did any of you feel like the little exercise we did last week helped with this? Because knowing that you can find like a composition in something random can really help you when you're intentionally placing stuff too, you know? So let's see. So good job. I think, did I skip anybody who has theirs ready to go and wants to share?
I haven't gone yet.
I didn't see who that was, but
It's Paige.
okay, go for it, Paige.
Let me just pull it up real quick. Okay, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I kept mine really simple because that is my skill set right now. So I just kind of wanted to do what I could, and just like practice my skills. And then I wanted to make the word emphasis like bigger than the word shape, just I guess again to like emphasize that part. And then along with that, I made it the same color as the shape that I was emphasizing. Yeah, that's kind of my process and what I ended up with.
Good job. I like that you did the emphasis and then the triangle. And I like just using a circular shape and then a really sharp triangle gives it, like, again, for lack of a better word, emphasizes that contrast in there. Yeah,
it also helped because those were like the two easiest shapes to make. So
yeah, overall, this is, you took something that was simple, but then through like your own choices with text and colors, it looks really nice.
Thank you.
Things, yeah, some of you can just pick a nice color palette and I'll be like, ooh, we like it. All of us think we like it because we like the colors. Color theory is going to be a fun week, everybody, I promise, because it's just so interesting to see what people are drawn to just instinctually based on colors that they like. But a lot of good decisions going on here. You did a great job. Do we have, again, anyone else want to share that hasn't gotten to share? I think I've been keeping track. I think we got everybody who had one, unless I missed you. So that was your first project critique. Not bad, right? It's not too bad. If any of you would like to make changes based on the critique, you're more than welcome to. If you want to wait and see what your score is and then decide if you want to make changes, you can. Or if you're just like as you go and you're learning and you're like, oh, you know what, I'm going to edit this. Anytime you want to change it, let me know. If you already have a score on something, just tell me that you resubmitted it. So I'll remember to go back and check. Yeah, so with that, we're going to move into our concepts for this week. And this week is really just about the 3 programs and what to use which one when. And this will help us as we move forward the next couple weeks. And then we'll get back into theory for the 2 weeks of, so we'll do typography and we'll do color theory, or it could be reversed. No, it's typography first. So next week's typography, I could look and tell you exactly what it's going to be. So yeah, next week's typography, which is super fun. And then it's color theory. So those two things combined, like I mentioned, I think last week, knowing how to pair fonts together and knowing how to choose colors will automatically elevate your designs and make you look more advanced regardless of what you can actually draw and produce in these programs. But just knowing how to make decisions about color and fonts will really help give you a solid foundation and look like you're really experienced. I'm going to screen share and go over the module. So this week for your assignment, you're going to be making something like this, and I give you all the components to be able to do that. So if I jump over here to the module, this is the assignment. Let me go to software basics. So we did our first group critique check. We're going to learn when and where to use the 3 main programs. So in this class, we really focus on InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop. And I don't do as much Photoshop as I would really like, but in my experience, that's the one most of you are familiar with. Most of us have tried to edit photos, or I get students that are into photography. So most students have the most familiarity with Photoshop, and then Illustrator and InDesign are a little more intimidating and a little harder to use right off the bat. So, so I have this quote here. And let this sink in. This is very important. You can use a wrench to pound in nails, but it doesn't usually do a very good job, and effort required doesn't pay off. In the same way, you can use Photoshop to make a resume, but you wouldn't want to. Learning to use the right tool is an essential part of using the Adobe Creative Cloud for design applications. Do not fall in the trap of using one program over the other because you like it better. That is absurd as using a wrench as a hammer because you like wrenches better. Each application has its own strength. So this is the best quote because this is 100% true. Like, you can pound in a nail with anything, but why would you when a hammer exists to make that job so easy? And then if you really want to get advanced, then there's things like a nail gun and even more advanced tools after you learn the basics. So I really hope, and this happens all the time, you'll get comfortable in one program and you like doing it. I even run into this in the professional world when I get sent stuff. Oh, we had so-and-so in our office make this logo, and I open it up and it's a pixel-based logo in Photoshop. And you'll hear me use a lot of jargon as we talk about this week. And that's because there are file formats. And if I open up, I forgot to pull up I do have something in Photoshop. So this, you can download this and view it. It is in the module. So this is just going over different types of color. So in addition to the different programs, there are different kinds of color formats, and we'll get into this in much more detail in color theory week. But these different color codes are utilized because they're for different things. So Pantone system is actually a true Pantone color is based off a very specific ink made by this company. Most printers use ink based off of CMYK, which is actually cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And if you've ever used a printer, you'll see those ink colors are actually in the printer itself. RGB is how screen colors are made up, and then hexadecimal is a code combination for web-based colors, so things can be replicated other places and all look the same. Now, this graphic is a JPEG. I have it opened up in Photoshop, and what that means is that it's made of pixels. If I zoom in here and I keep zooming and keep zooming, you'll see the pixels actually forming, and you'll see that it gets blurry. I cannot zoom in indefinitely into space. That's as far as I can go on this image. It's a JPEG image. It's flattened. I can't pull apart these pieces individually. If I wanted to edit it, I would have to use things in Photoshop and cut things out and lay things over the top, but I can't just come in and edit that type. Now, if I go into Illustrator, you'll see these are some illustrations that you can use this week for the assignment if you'd like to. And these, again, these can scale infinitely. It's a vector file, so it's all made in Illustrator and the computer is telling us where these shapes are. I can get my scale tool here and I can make this pigeon as big as I want. Oops, I flipped him upside down. Or as small as I want. And all of that information is still retained. It does not become pixelated. If I take this pigeon into Photoshop and I paste him into this document and see how it's asking me pixels, and I say, okay, this is going to be pixels now. And I can even scale him up a little bit before, but now it's a pixel-based illustration. And again, if I zoom in, see how it gets pixelized? So there are reasons you use Photoshop and there are reasons you use Illustrator. If you are creating anything that you will be replicating in print over and over again, like a logo, like type, things that you have to edit, you do not do that in Photoshop because it is not a layout software and it is pixel-based software. Illustration is what you do in Illustrator. That's why it's called Illustrator. So anything that is a graphic, an icon that's drawn, you want to do that in Illustrator and utilize all the wonderful tools that Illustrator has available to you. And then InDesign is what I have found most people are they're hesitant to use this. They don't really understand how it works and what the point of it is when you could just use something like Illustrator. Technically, yes, I can make an 8.5 by 11 document in Illustrator. I can type out paragraphs. I can move type around, but as you really get into laying out multiple pages, creating multi-page documents, or doing anything that has several components on it, you will start running into things that make that much more difficult than if you get comfortable in InDesign. So this is the advanced version of the assignment. I'm not sure if any of you feel like you're ready for that. I do have students really watch this tutorial. I have a tutorial just on recreating this illustration style, and some students really take to it and love it. And it's actually very simple and it uses the pen tool. So if you want to take a stab at this assignment, this image right here, if I go over to my Adobe, this and this consist of the exact same components. It's got a JPEG, it's got an illustration, and it's got type. These two things are no different from each other. It's just that this illustration that was created is a little more time consuming and different than just plopping in this EPS file up here. But in InDesign, it's exactly the same thing. It consists of all of the same elements. And you'll see here, I have this photo dropped in. I have this text that is still editable and I can adjust it. And then I have this EPS file. And if I click here, I right click and put edit original or edit with, I can go to Illustrator. I can open up this file and I can still make changes. Like say I decide after the fact that I really just want her pink outfit to be blue. And I can come in, I can make those changes. I can save it even. I just saved it. Then I can hop over to InDesign and it automatically updates that for me. And it already knows. Now, if I'm like, no, you know what? I don't like the blue. I just go back to Illustrator. I haven't closed this, so I can just undo and resave that. And then hop back over to InDesign and it doesn't automatically update. Let me save this again. Come to the links, relink it. Of course, it did it the first time and now it's going to be difficult. Don't act, oops, that was the wrong button. I'm actually not sure where I saved that last one. So to navigate back to it, but you just go relink it and I'll get into that when we go over our assignment. So let me come back to the module really quick. This, we're not going to be watching that yet. This is the tutorial for how to do that illustration style. If any of you are really interested in that, it is so simple and it's a really fun style to learn. So you are more than welcome to do the advanced version of the assignment if you'd like. This quote comes from this chapter that's the right tool for the job. If you'd like to read over that, you can. And this is an entire PDF. If you really feel like you like to learn through reading, you can download this PDF and dive in. It's not mandatory, but it is there for you if you would like to use it. So a couple other, before I get into the assignment itself, some key vocabulary for the week. So Photoshop is image editing and compositing. So if you are putting pictures together, if you're changing a JPEG image, if you have a photograph, you're changing it to black and white, you're editing a photo in any capacity, you're using Photoshop. That is the image editing software. Illustrator is for vector graphics and illustration, and then InDesign is for page design and layout for print and digital publishing. You can make whole books, multi-page documents, and it pulls. So you want to try to design, to make things in InDesign as little as possible. So you can make shapes. There's a shape tool. I'll show you. You have a toolbar in InDesign that is very similar to Illustrator, and you have a whole thing where you can make shapes. And you even have a pen tool and you have a pencil. So technically, yes, you can draw in InDesign, but again, it's not the same and you'll start running into problems. You can make a quick shape or two if you'd like, and you'll start learning reasons to do that, but it's not illustration software. So what it is it's layout software, and you pull from other places. So you have your illustration saved somewhere, you have your JPEG saved somewhere, and you can even save whole type from Word documents and drop those in and just still edit the Word document, and it pulls that information from these other sources and keeps it all together for you. So another thing we want to learn is resolution, and that's why knowing the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator is so important. Does anybody know who has a background in photography what screen resolution is? So you view things on a screen at 72 dpi. If I jump over here back to Photoshop, resolution is the number of like the pixels that are comprising stuff. So if you get into like TVs and things like that, a standard HD television now, I think it's 1920 by 1080 at 72 dpi. So that's telling you what size to make your documents. Now, most of the time, if something's going to be printed, we say do it at 300, but printers really print at like 150. So that means there's like more dots or pixels comprising what this is. Now, I already went over color formats, and then file formats. You can, this right here is a download to something I send all of my clients. I realized after a while, I would do a full logo package. I would send clients different file formats, and then they would get a sign made or something, and they'd be like, it came out blurry. And I'd be like, why didn't you send the sign maker the EPS file? Like, to me, I'm like, well, why did you send them the JPEG file? But people who aren't designers, who don't have software on their computer that can open up these files, do not even realize what the difference between these is. And they were just sending off JPEGs to print huge signs, and then they would come out blurry. So you can download this and read it if you'd like. And this is what I send to my clients to explain to them when they get a logo package of EPS, PDF, AI, JPEGs, and PNGs, why each file is named what it is and what it's for. So I've learned that just because this is something I do doesn't mean other people are familiar with it. So it has a quick fact, and then the use. The use is what's important for my clients because they don't necessarily understand that you can't blow up a JPEG infinitely and assume that it's going to look just as good as an EPS file, which is a vector-based file. And you'll see here in-house printing. So if you're going to throw a JPEG on a Word document and print it out in your office computer, it'll probably be perfectly fine. But if you're going to send a JPEG and blow it up and get like a huge sign made or something like that, and the problem is that nowadays we have all of these online resources, and you may not even realize that something's too small. Say you want to get a banner made at like banners.com, which I don't know if that's a real website, but it probably is. And you can just upload your JPEG of your logo that you have and you done. And then it arrives and it looks weird and you don't know why. It's because your JPEG file was too small and it cannot scale infinitely. The information is just not there in the file. So let's see. And then there are key command cheat sheets. I try to be really good about telling you what I'm doing with my key commands as I go along, but if you want to kind of study a few of them, you can download these cheat sheets for you to reference. And that's really like the bulk of the information for this week. It's quite simple. I just want you to learn what to use for each program and when to do it. And so I will walk you through the assignment. Has everyone had time to download the zip file? If you want to go to, I'll screen share again. If you go to skills practice, so here in the module, we have software basics, and that's just the information that I was just reading. We have the skills practice, which is your assignment. It's not a project. There's really not a, you get to make some creative decisions and you can do the advanced version, but it's, again, our tops. It doesn't have to be very difficult. And then here's the discussion board from last week that I forgot to activate. But if you go to this assignment, you'll see there's a link to a zip file here provided. I'm going to navigate over to my Finder. And so here is what is in that zip file. You have a document font. You can use any font on your computer if you want to, but the font that I use is there because when you open it up, if you don't have that font, it's going to tell you this font is missing. It'll also give you the option to replace that font, which you are more than welcome to do. And then I have EPS files. So when I first created this assignment, I chose zodiac signs. I thought, oh, this is fine. Like everybody has a birthday, they can pick a zodiac sign that fits them. If you do not like astrology and you would prefer to choose something else, I also have a download of these little animals. But the point is, I'm providing you with an EPS file that you can open up and you can learn to alter and change all on your own. Bounce back over here. This video will walk you through the entire process. It's an older video. I thought I made a new one, but I couldn't find it. And I think I might have named it something differently. But this video will walk you through the entire process, but I'm also going to do it now. So if you'd like to follow along, you are welcome to. And what we're going to be creating is this right here. I have a couple source images you'll see. I give you 3 options. Again, you're more than welcome to pick any photo of your choice to do this. And you'll just need a photo of yourself. So let's start here. I'm going to use, here's another thing, IDML versus INDD. INDD is the InDesign file extension. IDML is if you have a version. With Creative Cloud nowadays, this doesn't happen as often because it'll automatically update for people. But IDML is a version of InDesign that can be opened in a version older or newer versus the exact same version of InDesign that I have here. So if you have trouble opening the start document, open up the template document instead. So I'm going to open up my start document. And you'll see here, I have all of these frames. I have the circular frame and I have this, the picture, and then I have this for the EPS file. I'm going to navigate back to my week 3 template folder, and I'm going to open up one of these illustrations. So you can choose the animals too if you'd like. Let's see. I'm gonna pick the cat just to be different. So what you do, you open up one of these, you can pick any of them. And if you'd like to do the advanced version, it could also be an illustration of a person if you'd like. And you'll see here, this is my source photo. You can pick any photo of anybody and use this technique to get a pretty cool stylized illustration of them. It's very simple. It just takes time because you're using the pen tool to basically break down these basic shapes and click and copy and copy and copy. I do walk you through it. If I play this, you'll see on the pen tool. And I now have, I'll zoom in and show you. And it's just using the pen tool and the eyedropper over and over again and creating layers so you can see what's on top and making sure things sit on top of each other. So if you feel like you've really got a grasp of Illustrator, or you just want to practice something, or you think this is really cool, I mean, you could do this with a photograph of anybody you know, or any celebrity that you like, and you can create something that's I think pretty cool. So you're more than welcome to do this, and there is a supplement video for you. Otherwise, open up any EPS file that you have provided to you. You'll see there are also these star versions. And then there's these seal versions. So what I want you to do, and it's listed in the instructions, is pick any EPS file that you like. If you know, astrology is easy because you're like, oh, I'm a this or I'm a that, if you're into that or know your sign, and you can just pick one. And it gives you like things to kind of naturally pair it with that can fit together. Like if you look at my example, I picked Aries and picked all the warm colors to kind of fit with that. Or like I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to pick this cat. It makes less sense, but it's just about learning how to move these files around. So what you pick is irrelevant. It's how you implement them in InDesign. But if you'd like to create a nice document, like I have students that really like just the aesthetic of what comes out of this, and they end up like really putting some thought into it, like their own photograph and a symbol that really means something to them. So you're more than welcome to do that too. So once you've chosen your EPS file, click on it and then Command C, I'm copying it. You can also go up to Edit Copy. And then you'll go File, New. And I'm just going to create an 8.5 by 11. The size of your document doesn't matter. And then you're just going to paste it in that new document. If you'd like, you can scale it up or down, but it's an EPS file. It's a vector-based file. It doesn't matter what size you decide to make it. It will scale up and down infinitely for you. And I want you to change the color. That's part of your assignment. Once you create a new file and drop your EPS file in, I want you to change the color. This is a cat, right? Looks kind of like a dog now that I zoomed in. No, there's the dog. That's a cat. So I'm going to make it orange. I have an orange cat. I'm just going to go File, Save As. And then see, this is an AI file. Yes, you can drop an AI file into InDesign, but I want you to make an EPS file. So you just change the file format, and I'm going to call this cat, and I'm going to save it in my week 3 folder and just save it in there. So now when I go back to InDesign, I can click on this frame that's already here, and I can hit Command D or File. Oops, sorry about that. Command D. I have to click on it though. I have to have it selected with my direct select arrow or my select arrow, and then Command D, and it'll pop up, and I can navigate to where my folder is just in downloads because I downloaded it from Canvas. And then there's my cat, and I hit open, and see how it came in too large, like it's larger than the frame itself. So you get your direct select arrow, you can click on that, and then you can scale this down so that it fits within your frame. Now, I gave you these frames as a guide to help you know what to place where. But if I were just to go to Command D or File Place, I can still pick this cat and just drop it into my document and then move it around and scale it where I want it to go. You do not have to use the frames, but it's just an easier way. And then to show that you properly created your EPS file, I want you to make sure it overlaps with this circular JPEG. Okay, so they have to overlap so that I can see that that EPS file is transparent versus a JPEG. If this was a JPEG of the exact same cat, it would be in a square and I wouldn't be able to see through it to the next thing. I'm going to delete this cat for now. Then I'm going to grab this circle. Again, I click on it. Same thing, Command D. I navigate here and I'm just going to grab one of the photos and I'm going to open it up. And see how when I placed it in there, it fit it in there as best it could, and you can still see the gray background on the top and the bottom. Again, you can grab your direct selection arrow, click on that, and now you can scale it, and it scales it just within the image. If I were to grab this arrow and scale it, it would scale that whole circle up and down. So if I grab the select arrow and scale that circle, it moves the circle. If I grab the direct selection arrow, click on that photo. So you want to make sure you're clicking on the photo. See how the bounding box is going out past the circle because it's telling me it's clicked on the photo inside the circle. And then you can use these toggle points, or you can even use your scale tool and click right here and then scale that up so it fills the entire circle. So that's another thing I want you to do. I want you to make sure whatever image you put in the circle is filling up the entire circle itself, and that your EPS file is overlapping your JPEG file. This is where you place an image of you. You can see it here. I don't know where this photo is actually. So let me just do this. I'm just gonna screen capture this and steal this photo of me. You can see it's really old. I have bangs still. And oh, for another extra lesson, let me open this up. I'm going to open this up in Photoshop. And you'll see because I screen captured this, it's not very high res. If I zoom in here, I get a little pixelated. I'm a little bit fuzzy, but it'll work fine for the purpose of this assignment. If I go to image size, you'll see if you screen capture something, it automatically does it at a certain resolution. But I want it to be 150 DPI. You'll see those pixel sizes change. But I want to know how many inches that is. It's about 3 by 3, and that's perfectly fine. But let's say I want this to be black and white. I'm just going to adjust it to mode, image mode grayscale. Discard that color and save it. And then I come over here to InDesign. I click on that frame. I have it selected. And again, Command or Control D to place the file. And then that is just currently living on my desktop. Bad habit, but I save stuff on my desktop all the time. And then place it in. So you'll see here, it actually extended past the frame box that I wanted it to be. So again, I use the direct selection arrow, click on it, and scale that down so it fits in the frame. Now for the text portion of this, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can open up project text and you can copy this and you can paste it right in there. And then here you could put your name, you can put the sign you are. I'm just going to put my name. Then you can put your birth date, your sign, whatever you want. I just need you to kind of just go through your check in the boxes. So what I had actually put, if I want this to be the new subheadline, I can use the eyedropper and pick up those features of that text and then cut it and paste it right there. And then I think I say in the assignment, I'd like you to change the color of this text so that it matches whatever image you have. And again, you can do that by getting your type tool, selecting this type, Then you go to the eyedropper and you eyedrop and you just pick the colors out of the image somewhere. That's probably going to be too light. Let me pick a new one. If you decide to change colors in between, if you use the eyedropper, like I just did right here, and then I want to change that color again, you actually have to go back and click on that tool one more time, or you'll run it, it won't really work easily. So there you go. If you want to view this without the guides and the frames on it, go up to View, Extra, Hide Frame Edges. There's also a key command for that. And then in InDesign, I know we were talking earlier about preview. You can preview it. And this is what it should look like when you're done. You should have all of these elements on the page. They should be personal to you, or you just, copy one of the photos. Or you take a stab at this version of it and you do a photo and you drop in your illustration and then just add some text. Things that aren't important. What this actually says, not important. What you choose to place for your EPS file and JPEG aren't as important as doing it right, making sure the frame is filled in, making sure this is overlapping. If you really do not want to put a picture of yourself on here, that's fine. I like you to use photographs of yourself because it's another way when I grade these and look at these that I'm like, oh, this is like, I start learning who you are and just connecting you to a face. So I like it when you use photos. But again, the important part of this assignment is that you're going through, you're following the process, you're learning to create an EPS file, you're dropping it into InDesign, and you learn the difference between all three of these programs and what they're used for. So we're going to really get into InDesign in greater depth as we go to page layout. It's probably the program we spend the least amount of time in, but this will start getting you comfortable and learning what it does and when to use it. Does anyone have any questions? Did anyone try to do it along with me? No? This will be recorded and posted. There's a video of it being recorded and posted. Again, this should not take you more than an hour. It should be very simple, unless you choose to do the advanced assignment. And if you choose to really try to learn that illustration technique and do the advanced assignment, I will give you extra credit for that because it is much more complicated. But this is just something I want you to follow the steps of, to go through it and learn the process. Don't overthink it. Don't feel like you have to make it the best ever. Just use what's provided for you and just practice the steps. Okay? So it's that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying that sounds good. It seemed pretty straightforward with the explanations that you gave.
It's pretty straightforward, but again, you'll get stuck somewhere and you'll be like, this is like, if you forget to use the direct selection arrow versus the selection arrow and you can't grab and scale, like things like that might be the things that'll frustrate you. Like even me just going through this, I do not know why, and I don't know where it's saved. My link wasn't updating when I changed the color back because the first time it automatically changed that color. And then I was like, I don't know why it's doing that. Let's just move along in class. But if I was really trying to work on this, I would have to go troubleshoot that and figure out where it was saved and import it back in. But I could just brush over that in class and just keep moving along. So if you are doing the assignment and things like that are happening to you and you're frustrated and can't figure it out, just either stop and rewatch the video, or if it's really complicated, you can always open up this file from the very beginning and re-download it and just try doing it again. Sometimes you get things too, you've changed too many things. And again, always let me know if you need a one-on-one Zoom or help. And again, these assignments are really like you either do it or you don't. It's not a very intense thought out score. You either get credit for doing it or you don't. So if you really have trouble, just wait till next class and I can walk you through some of it, kind of like we did for Jacob today with the gradient tool. And we can look at it together and figure out what's going on. Okay. So that's your week ahead. This is a nice, easy week. And then it gets really fun and exciting next week with typography and then color theory. So enjoy this light, easy week. All right. If you have any questions, stick around. Otherwise, you're free to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ezra. Have a good night.
You too.
Is this class going to remain online?
Yeah, so it was, when I originally set it up, it was supposed to be face-to-face. So if you signed up for this course early, it probably said face-to-face, and there was not a high enrollment among any of the students. So they switched it to virtual, and then they switched everyone to virtual for temporary. So, but this semester is completely online.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, if anyone's feeling like if it starts getting more comfortable, or like as we work on the final, if we want to set up like a group time to work on anything, we can always talk about doing that. The advantage to being face to face is that if you're like, it's not doing this, I can walk over and literally be like, oh, this is what you have to do. But I do like that you're all on your own systems and you can keep learning on your own computers and working. So yeah, but yeah, that was a long answer.
No, that's totally fine. I have all my classes online, and there's one instructor who like said, yeah, we're going back face to face. And I'm just kind of like, well, if all my classes are on,
It makes it hard when it's the only one, and then you're going to campus just for that one thing. So,
right. I'm kind
yeah.
of like, I might just wait till next semester to fully like,
I
'cause
think,
it's like,
go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a flex class. So like she technically, I guess, can't like force us to come back, so we can choose to like Zoom in or whatever.
Yeah, I think that everyone was eager and thought we'd be in a different place when we said, oh, it's going to be face to face, but it's hard when it's the still limbo period where it's like half and half. It's easier just to know all or nothing. So I think the vibe among faculty and staff in general is that it's just going to reset. Hopefully we'll get to be able to reset in the fall and everything will be like it was. Well, not exactly. Nothing will ever be like it was before, but you know what I mean?
Right.
I think the push for face-to-face will be in the fall, but it just wasn't there for this spring. So.
Oh, I understand completely.
Yeah. So yeah, this will be online.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See, Corey, do you have a question? Just hanging out.
No, ma'am. I was just hanging out listening to everybody else.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. Have a good night.